Dead. Where is he? Second?
Enemy down.
He's one shot.
Reload. Deploying health drone.
I gotta heal for a sec.
Reload.
I'm gonna go for a res. I wanna go for a res.
Healing ya.
I can't. No time. No time. I'm going for the res.
Thanks for that.
I'm gonna get one of you guys up. I'm gonna push out, kill this guy. Got one down.
Enemy down. Reload.
His buddy's weak.
Just giving my shields a recharge.
His buddy's still down there.
3. Beginning ring countdown.
Got him down. Dead. All dead.
Reloading.
They were YouTubers too. They were actually YouTubers.
Squad down.
There are no strings on me.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? It is your boy Carnage, your primitive AK here, back with another video for you guys today. I really do appreciate you guys showing all the love and support on the channel. Today is our first ever Apex Legends video on the channel. As you guys know, I don't really upload anything else besides COD on the channel, but in recent events, I've been actually enjoying this game lately, so I figured why not show you guys some of the best settings that I use in this game, and I figured this settings will help you out. Bear in mind, this is not going to turn you into a god immediately. You're not going to be dropping 20-round games every single game once you turn these settings on, but this is certainly some settings that have helped me out and have helped me get a lot of decent wins with some friends of mine. Ocean Peasy, you guys know I play with him a lot, but if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Really do appreciate you guys showing the love and support, whether you're new to the channel and or returning subscriber. I really do appreciate you guys. Just be sure to drop a like. Takes 2 seconds off your day. It helps your brother out. Anyways, we're going to get right into the settings video. We're going to head over to the settings bar. We're going to start with the gameplay tab first. I'm going to explain basically what all these settings do and the reason why I used to change them or leave them as is. So, interact prompt style, you're going to leave that at default. Button hints, leave that on as well. You're not really going to change any of these settings. Crosshair damage feedback, you're going to leave that as is as well. Now, what you're going to want to change is you're going to want to, on your screen, this is going to be defaulted for damage numbers. It's going to be default to stacking. You're going to want to change this over to floating, and the reason why you want to change this to floating is because when you have it at stacking, essentially what that means is that, let's say you're using an SMG, right? You shoot a guy with an SMG, you hit him 3 times. All right, let's just say for the sake of numbers that it damages 20 bullets, 20 damage per bullet. What it's going to do is, so that way numbers aren't spammed on your screen, it's going to actually stack those bullets together for a total of 60. So you're going to see 60 on your screen instead of 20, 20, 20. You're going to want to turn this on to floating because it'll help your teammates get a better idea of how weak they are. So you'll say, hey, I dealt 10 damage to this guy around the corner. He's got a lot of health. Or if you're really good at math, you'll count up all the numbers real quick and say, hey, I dealt 100 damage to this guy. He's still got, you know, part of his health bar left. So leaving it at floating, this will give you every single damage number for every bullet that you hit. So you want to make sure that's on floating. Another option is both, where it shows both stack numbers and every single number separately, but that gets a little bit too cluttered and it starts getting confusing, and your teammates are going to be like, what type of callouts are you making? So you want to leave that at floating. Your ping opacity, you're going to leave this on default. Obituaries, leave it on. Incoming damage feedback, leave this to default. Streamer mode, now if you hate seeing other players' names, or if you hate like getting stream sniped, I guess you could say. I don't really get stream sniped that much, and I doubt you guys get stream sniped unless you're like a subscriber of mine and you have like 100,000 subs. But if you really want to have this on so that way you don't get stream sniped, especially if it happens to you often, you can certainly turn this on to all. That'll certainly help mitigate that a bit, I guess, but you really won't need this setting at all. I don't even touch it. I don't even get stream sniped at all. Usage sharing, leave that on enabled or disabled. Doesn't really make a difference. Accessibility, you don't want to change any of those settings at all. Moving on, we're going to head over to controller. Now, your button layout, this is where things get a bit interesting. Now, this is why I mentioned or titled it, so that way if you have a SCUF controller, these settings will help you out as well. Now, if you have a default controller, just a regular controller, no buttons, no extra buttons, just a standard PS4 controller, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to change this setting over to button puncher. What this is going to do is that this is going to actually flip your crouch and melee button. If you look on the controller icon right there, it's actually going to flip that, so that way your crouch and sliding is actually going to be the right thumbstick, and your melee button's going to be circle. You're not going to be meleeing that much. That's why we're going to be moving that button over there. Now, the reason why crouch is better on the right hand thumbstick for a default controller is because of the fact that since you don't have paddles, it's important that you keep your thumb on the aiming stick as much as possible. You want to be able to make sure you're not removing your thumb off of that thumbstick, so that way you can maintain your aim. So moving this over to button puncher is going to enable, so that way you can slide and still aim at the same time with ease without any type of trouble. Now, if you have a SCUF controller, I actually have a SCUF Impact, so I have 4 paddles, and I can actually reprogram all these paddles. But for the sake of just people saying, let's just say you have a default SCUF controller, you don't have any type of electromagnetic remapping, you're going to want to keep this at default. Also, button puncher is the equivalent of tactical layout from Black Ops 4 or pretty much any other Call of Duty. But if you have a regular controller, you're going to want to make sure, or a SCUF controller, you're going to want to make sure that you're on default settings. This is going to keep everything the same as if you had just booted up the game. Obviously, my right paddle is circle, so that way I don't have to take my hand off the aiming stick at all. You're going to want to make sure that you're sliding, jumping as much as possible, and having this set to the right side paddle, which is circle. This makes it so that way I don't have to use that actual circle button on the right hand side. So I pretty much never have to use those buttons at all. X is my left paddle, square is my left mid paddle, and the rest are obviously just moved off to the right. So pretty much this, if you have a SCUF controller with 4 paddles, leave this at default, because you will never have to actually touch the triangle, square, circle, or X button. That'll certainly help you out in that matter. But for the most part, SCUF controller, I'll reiterate it again so you guys hear the long story short. If you have a SCUF controller, leave this on default. If you have a regular controller, put it on button puncher. That'll help you out with that. Stick layout, leave that to default. You don't need to change this unless you just want to have some fun or do a crazy video or something like that. I don't know if you're into that kind of thing. Interact, you just leave that as is. Crouch button, leave that on toggle. Aim button on hold as well. Sensitivity. Now, I always say this when it comes to settings videos. When it comes to sensitivity, you really just got to experiment with it and see exactly what works for you. I always recommend, if you are starting out on this game for the first time, put your sensitivity lower. All right, the lower it is, the easier it is to adjust. And then if you feel like it's too slow, bump it up a bit. Now, I was started off on a 3. I started off on a 3.2. What I mean by 3.2 is that my sensitivity is at a 3 and my sensitivity ADS was at a 2. What that means is that every time I look around, it would be at a 3, and when I ADS, it would be actually slower at a 2. In my opinion, you want to make sure that your ADS sensitivity is lower than your actual sensitivity. That way you always stay shot on target. You won't really have any trouble missing shots. But in my case, I felt 3 was too slow, so I bumped this up to a 4 and my ADS up to a 3. Generally, you want to make sure that your ADS sensitivity is 1 number below your actual look sensitivity. But like I said, you're going to have to play with this. I play with a SCUF controller and I have Control Freak, so my thumbsticks are a little bit taller than the average thumbstick. So like I said, you really just got to play around with this. But always remember, my best recommendation, make sure your look sensitivity is 1 number higher than your ADS sensitivity. You don't want your ADS sensitivity bigger than your look sensitivity. Otherwise, things are going to start looking really weird and feeling really weird. Your response curve, you're going to want to keep this on classic. I don't really recommend messing with this. Now, if you bump this up all the way to linear, your response curve, what it's going to do is it's going to make the game feel like Call of Duty. It's going to feel a lot more fast-paced. Your character's not going to feel as clunky. Now, that may sound like a good thing, but I'm really not a big fan of it. I tried it before and it just did not feel right at all. It felt a little bit too snappy, so I don't really recommend changing that. If you want to leave this at like linear or high velocity, give it a shot. You might actually like it. But if you're just starting out on this game, or if you played Titanfall or Battlefield before, you want to leave this on classic. It's going to feel really weird if you try to change that otherwise. Your look dead zone, leave that on small. Movement dead zone on small. Inverted look, obviously you don't want to invert this, all right? Just don't touch this. Vibration. Now, in Call of Duty, I always tell people, turn vibration off because it throws off your aim. I haven't really had that experience with this game. I've actually left this on. It doesn't, I'm not saying leaving it on is going to turn you into a god of a player, but I'm simply saying that vibration, whether it's on or off, is not really going to affect you that much. Call of Duty is a lot more fast paced and It requires you to be a lot more snappy. That's why I always recommended turning it off. This game doesn't really require too much of that. I mean, you obviously need to be aware of your surroundings and be alert and ready for a gunfight and be very responsive, but the vibration is not really going to make too much of a difference whether or not that's on or off. But if you just really prefer it off, then by all means leave it off. Now, field of view and brightness, we're going to leave this at default. I don't really touch brightness. It depends on the monitor you have. I have a 1080p monitor, so 60 hertz, so I just leave that as is, and I adjust my monitor as I need to. But field of view, if you're not familiar with what field of view is, assuming you're a console player and you don't really play PC games that much, what field of view does is that this is actually going to increase your peripheral vision. Peripheral vision is essentially how far your character can see and how much of your screen is actually covered. So meaning, the higher the number this is, the more that you can see. So your left and right areas of the screen are actually expanded even more. If you put this all the way down to default, this is usually what console players play on. Now, I strongly recommend, if you do not play console games, or if you don't play PC games at all, I strongly recommend you leave this at 70. I turn this up to 92 because I play a lot of PC games on the side that you guys normally don't see me play before, and I am very much used to the higher field of view. This is going to make your gun zoomed out a lot more. It's going to feel really weird if you've never played it before, and in some rare cases, you might even get motion sickness. So I recommend just leaving this at 70. If you want to experiment with this and you've never seen a field of view option before, I recommend putting it at about 80, and then if you realize that it's something that you could get used to, bump it all the way up to 92 or even 90. But for the most part, I recommend keeping this at 70 if you're strictly just a console player. It's not really going to help you out that much. Most console players leave it at 70 as well. But like I said, I like having that extra advantage. This will actually give you an advantage. I just want to make that clear. You will be able to see a tad bit more on your screen, but it's going to feel a little bit awkward if it's your first time messing with field of view settings. But for the most part, I'm actually happy they added this. This is primarily a feature for PC gamers. Your colorblind mode, don't touch that. It's not going to do anything. I know there's like this strange myth where if you change colorblind settings, you can see better. No, it doesn't do anything. And for the most part, audio, we're just going to leave that as is. You can turn subtitles on if you want. But for the most part, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. These are the settings that have helped me out, and I certainly hope these settings help you guys out as well. If you guys are new, make sure you guys comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I appreciate you guys showing the love and support on the channel. If you want more of these videos, leave it in the comments box down below. If you've made it this far, just type hashtag more Apex, so that way I know that you guys made it this far in the video. And if you want to see less Apex, more Call of Duty, or if you just don't care for this game, type hashtag less Apex. Alright, I'm curious to see how many people made it this far in the video. So in case someone that didn't make it this far was probably wondering what the heck's all the hashtags for. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you guys in the next one. It is your boy Carnage, your primitive AK, signing out. Peace out, fellas.